2,000 years ago, there was a group called the Sanhedrin. They didn't like this Jesus guy. He was radical. He fed people, cured people, talked about compassion and mercy and empathy. But more importantly, he didn't conform to their version of their religious ideology. So instead of talking to them, they decided, you know what we're going to do? We're going to murder this Jesus guy. How dare he not conform to our religious ideology? Fast forward to 2020. A group of people wearing red hats don't like the results of an election. So they turn to violence. Beating officers, putting up nooses, throwing bike racks at them, stabbing them, cutting off their fingers, crushing their vertebrae, PTSD, brain damage. Many officers can never work again. Officer Sitnick will never see his family again because of the damage. 3 other officers took their own life from the PTSD that was caused. And it lingered on for the next 5 years. And many of these same religious zealots that wear red hats would make anonymous death threats to people, congressmen, that they disagreed with because they didn't like what they had to say. Then a couple days ago, we have another incident. Something that should have never happened. And once again, what do we see? Death threats, the Second Amendment. This is war. This is the end. Because they didn't like what people had to say. Do you see the parallels? That Sanhedrin that crucified Jesus was the original version of MAGA. They simply didn't have muskets back then or red hats made in China. It hasn't changed. These religious zealots have never wanted to follow Jesus. They've wanted Jesus to conform to their religious ideology. And they have always justified violence and in the current period, misogyny, sexism, racism, transphobia, xenophobia. If you don't agree with their religious ideology, they've never, ever followed Jesus. They are not followers of Christ. In fact, many say that they believe in God. You know who else believes in God and doesn't follow him? The prince of this world, the fallen angel himself. These religious Pharisees have more in common with Satan than Jesus. One day, they're going to stand before God, and God's going to ask them, who are you and why should I let you into my house? Well, God, I demonized trans people, and I didn't like the election, so I beat police officers, and I cheered it on. And in 2024, I voted for that man that you sent down that was a rapist, and that did atrocities on Epstein Island, and I made many anonymous death threats to congressmen. Yeah, Jesus, I did your will. I own the libs every day, God. I won every argument that I was a part of, God. I did it for you. No, you didn't. You did it for yourself, for your own religious ideology. You did it for religion. And I ask you to have the faith of a child, that if you had the faith of a mustard seed, that you could move mountains. But instead, you decided to weaponize my word to push your religious ideology, just like the Sanhedrin did 2,025 years ago when they crucified my son. You can go over there with Jeffrey Epstein. They have never been Christians, and they will never be Christians because they don't follow Jesus. They follow the prince of this world. By your fruits shall you be judged. By the same measure you judge, lest you be judged. Judge thy neighbor fairly. By your actions are you judged. Maybe one of these days you'll have the traits of Jesus. Compassion, empathy, kindness, loving thy neighbor. As long as you run around owning the libs and celebrating a guy who makes fun of disabled people, why you demonize trans people and gay people because they don't fit into your religious ideology, you're not following anything from Jesus. You're just acting like a modern day Pharisee. You have yourself a white day.